This stuff lights your fireman, the pilot lights out.
This football team is coming into our place. We're standing in our way.
This is a game of the heart. Focus and finish.
Hey, before I get started, I just wanted to point something out to our viewers. And Mark Trestman, I know you're always watching, so listen up. There's a huge debate about who the Chicago Bears quarterback should be this week if Jay Cutler is healthy. Now look, Josh McCown has thrown for over 300 yards in 3 consecutive weeks. In fact, it's much better than that because he's averaged almost 352 yards with 8 touchdowns and just 1 interception the past 3 games. Now you know when the last time a Bears quarterback threw for over 300 yards in 3 consecutive weeks was? Never! It's never happened. You can go all the way back to Sid Luckman. It's never been done. So I don't even see how there's a choice here. Alright, now that I've helped out Trestman, it's time to help out you with some start and sits for Week 15. This segment is sponsored by Star Fantasy Leagues. You can find them at starfantasyleagues.com, and if you open up a new account, they'll match your initial deposit up to $500, which means $1,000 in your account if you want it. So give them a shot and test your skill against others. Daily Fantasy has become all the rage. Just click on the Daily Fantasy tab on rotoexperts.com and you'll find all kinds of useful, helpful information to help you be successful in daily fantasy gaming. Over the last NFL month, Ryan Tannehill has scored more fantasy points than Andrew Luck, Drew Brees, and Matthew Stafford. How about that? Now, the Fish host the Patriots this week, who are very good at winning games, but don't confuse that with playing good statistical defense. Teams may not be that successful at beating the Patriots, but they are certainly having success moving the ball. Among the defensive lowlights, New England has allowed the 3rd most fantasy points, over 21 fantasy points per game, to opposing quarterbacks since Week 11. You can put the fantasy football odds in your favor if you play Ryan Tannehill this week. So start him. Going hand in hand with the success of Ryan Tannehill has been the success of tight end Charles Clay. Charlie now has 3+ 15-point PPR weeks out of his last 4, with 14 receptions for 177 yards the past 2 weeks, fighting the promised land twice against Pittsburgh in Week 14. Again, don't confuse the Patriots' ability to win games with playing good defense from a statistical standpoint. Just about everyone has had success going up and down the field on the Pats. Clay has a great matchup this week, so start him. If you're in a PPR league, you may have noticed that Roddy White has returned to being his old self again, which I might point out is a comforting thing, because if he returned to being someone else, well, that would just be weird. Now, the Falcons play the Redskins this week, who've packed it in long ago. Now, they made it official this week they wanted to end the season because they shut down their franchise quarterback, they alienated their coach, and they scheduled the year-end Christmas party. Now, the past 2 weeks, Roddy White has racked up the yards and catches, and I expect that success to continue this week against the Skins, with the expectation that at least one of those receptions results in a touchdown. So start him. If you've been following along, you'll notice that after bursting onto the scene with a tremendous stretch of games, highlighted by a fantastic performance against the mighty Seahawks defense in primetime in Week 8, Zach Stacy's last few games have been rather pedestrian. Although he did have a touchdown last week against Arizona, his 14 carries for just 25 yards was, well, Trent Richardson-like. Now, this week the Saints traveled to St. Louis in what I like to call a home game away from home, as they get to play inside a dome, where their offense produces like clockwork. Now, more than anything, the Rams are going to need to try and keep up with the Saints' offense scoring, and pounding the rock isn't going to work when you need to put up 7 on every drive. The cards simply aren't aligned for Zach Stacy this week, so sit him. CJ Spiller faces Jacksonville this week, and your first thought might be to assume that this matchup is a favorable one. However, upon further review, see how I did that? Worked that in there? Upon further review, only 3 teams have allowed fewer fantasy points per game to running backs than Jacksonville. I don't like the matchup, so I'd sit him. Bobby Rainey has had 2 huge games at home, one against the Falcons and one last week against the Bills, and each was fueled by a huge long gainer. Now, if you take out those 2 long plays, he really hasn't done much. Take a look at the 3 other games he's played in, for instance. Rainey has 43 carries for just 143 yards and a touchdown. That's averaging less than 3 1/3 yards per carry. I don't like him at all against the front 7 of the 49ers this week, so sit him. Today's Twitter question comes from @Gridiron33, who writes, I have Jordan Reed, and I can't get a feel for whether he's going to play this week or not. I could play Jacob Tammy tonight instead. Should I just do that? Hey look, Reed didn't practice again on Wednesday. I don't know if he's going to practice today. And the way I see it, the Redskins are out of it, and they're going to sit RG3 for precautionary reasons, right? Although I'd argue it's a benching. So there's no reason to rush budding star like Reed back. And look, even if he does play, I think you can still make the argument that Jacob Tammy is going to get plenty of love as a slot receiver tonight in place of Wes Welker. Last week when Welker went down, Tammy stepped in and caught 4 passes for 47 yards on 5 targets. So I think you'll do well with him. Now if you've got a question you want answered, hit me up with a tweet. If I don't use your question on the program, I'll tweet you back with my best advice. And be sure to tune into the Roto Experts Fantasy Football News Notes and Analysis segment every weekday. I'll be here to keep you current and ahead of the competition, and on weekends, come back for This Week in Fantasy Football as I team up with the King, Scott Engel, covering the week that was and the week that will be, answering your viewer questions. The Lightning Bolts travel to Denver to take on the Broncos tonight, where it will be a balmy 20 degrees with clear skies, so snuggle up in the warmth of your own home and enjoy the game, everyone. For Roto Experts, I'm Mike Cardano.